Radio. And we are so happy to have you with us. I am your host today, the Liberty Mom Show. Liberty Moms are the original Secretaries of Defense. We are the real defenders of the home front. And we are here when it comes to defending our families and our communities. I'm your host, Dalane England, and we have a great lineup for you. It's going to be some really interesting information that is absolutely vital for you to know, especially at this time when we're getting ready to cast a vote and decide who we want to represent us. I have the honor of having Phil Lyman as my first guest. Phil is from the San Juan County. He was a county commissioner. And, I don't know if he wants me to talk about this because, he is a criminal. Like he is a convicted criminal. He probably doesn't want me to bring in this up, but as a county commissioner, he led a peaceful protest against the federal government that kept doing road closures of the public lands in the San Juan County. And because of this, like he was actually arrested. He was totally peaceful, no damage done, but he was arrested and huge fine, unbelievably huge fine. And because of it, he was voted Commissioner of the Year for being so committed to defending his constituents and their rights. And that is the kind of man that Representative Phil Lyman is. That's the kind of criminal that he is. And he got his bachelor's degree at BYU, I believe, and his master's degree at U of U. So he's at both the BYU and U of that, I guess. I don't know. I'm making that up. But he owns and runs his own CPA firm in Blanding. And he is also the co-founder of the first Rotary Club in Blanding. And he also, one of the things that I think is really important to know about Phil is that he transformed the healthcare system he launched the Utah Navajo health system. So that made such a difference for the people that live in Blanding and in that area. He and his wife, Jody, have 5 children. They're raised and they have a lot of grandchildren. I don't know how many, but maybe he does. And I know grandmothers always know. I don't know if granddads do, but I'm glad that he and his wife love to travel because they are doing a lot of traveling right now. And he's been in the legislature for 8 years, and this is not a matter of opinion. If you look at Phil's voting record, you can go on and you can look because Utah is phenomenal. We have an amazing website, and we record and document the votes that are made in committee and on the floor, and you can look at Phil's voting record. And it is so totally aligned with the Constitution, with the Republican platform, which is aligned with the Constitution, and with his votes are aligned with protecting the actual role of government, protecting our freedoms, and aligned with what the job the government is supposed to do, not what people always want, because sometimes people want the government to take care of them. But what Phil does is he uses the Constitution and as his threshold, that is the line where the bar that he uses to decide how to vote on an issue. And I just have to say, I have been, again, his voting record is not a matter of like, I like his voting record. Yes, I do, but it isn't my opinion. It is that his voting record is constitutionally aligned. It's very impressive. And Phil is running for governor. Phil, what is wrong with you? Why did you decide to run for governor?
That's a really good question. When I ran for county commission, I told Jody I was just going to do it for one term, and then move on with my business. And then at the end of one term, she said, "Well, you've got to stay in there just until you get this and this fixed." And that's the curse of getting involved in civics. Is it's like as soon as I get this problem fixed, I'm going to go and live my life, and there's just way too many problems. It's too compelling to stay in it. So
there's just too many problems, and it's like playing whack-a-mole. You get one solved and then 2 others appear.
And honestly, if you have that in your constitutional makeup of wanting things to go right, government's a fun place to be because there's a real job security in that.
Yeah, there's lots that goes wrong. That's right. Okay, so you decided, what was it that compelled you that said, I've got to run for governor? And I know that a lot of it was a lot of pressure from people asking you to run for governor. But what is it that caused you to decide I have to run for governor?
Well,
what supposed to do?
there was a couple of pivotal things, and I'll mention this one as just kind of an example of a lot of other problems that go wrong, and it was the Sitla land exchange. The state institutional trust lands decided that they were going to trade out all of the Sitla sections, all of the school sections in San Juan County, and give them to other counties in exchange for BLM land in San Juan County. So going from 8%, well, yeah, we've got 8% private property as it is now. Everything else is owned by the government. Trading out the Sitla sections would basically give us pure federal domination in San Juan County. And it was in alignment with the Red Rock Wilderness Bill, which is Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance's bill. And I'm saying, why, it's bad enough that we fight SUA at the federal level, but now we're fighting them at the state level, and complete tone deafness to anything that I would say. In fact, I was castigated as a troublemaker right from the very beginning. They knew that it would be unpopular with me, but instead of having the discussion, they decided it would be better just to kind of undermine my reputation with leadership and with the governor and with the senators, and paint me out as a troublemaker rather than have the discussion, the honest discussion about, is this a wise thing to do? And one of the things that the Sitla administrator, she came and testified to just the leadership at the House, and her testimony is recorded. And she said, data shows that communities with Sitla sections do better. They have more economic opportunity. They have more opportunity for growth. Their job market is better. All of these things, if you're in close proximity to Sitla sections, this is why we should do that trade and take all those out of San Juan County and give them to other counties. And I said, there's a word for that. It's called plunder. And government was intended to prevent it, not facilitate it. And it's the real truth. And that is whether we're talking about the Bureau of Land Management, who's hugely influenced by outside interest groups, including global interest groups, or right here at home. And so that was the discussion that I had, one of the many discussions that I had with the governor himself and with senators and congressmen in the room, and then to see that deal roll forward, despite what I thought was a sound constitutional argument, that even minorities have the right to, enjoyment of their communities. And I said, I'm not gonna sit back and watch this happen without putting up a fight. And that, like I say, that wasn't the one thing that made me run for governor, but that was one of the pivotal things. Elections, arguments, and some of the same influences, external influences, and really faulty arguments based on someone else's, logic outside the state. And I thought, gosh dang it, this is not the way it's supposed to happen. And I'm gonna run for governor.
Phil, that is such a huge deal. I think, I was going to ask you, what do you think is one of the most pressing issues facing Utah right now? And I'm still going to ask that. And I'm actually going to ask that of you, and then I'm going to give you my answer. What I think is the most pressing problem in facing Utah and really our nation right now. What do you think is the most important, most pressing?
There's a kind of a growing feeling that that states are not really vital to a Republican form of government, that we defer to the federal apparatus, and that the Supreme Court makes, they decide all of our decisions for us, and Congress decides all our decisions. And even worse than that, that the president has some kind of a, with his executive order ability, is the sovereign, and in the United States. And people need to remember that the people are sovereign in the United States. It's really unique, in all the history and all the founding of nations. The United States is unique in that they really said that the people are the sovereigns. And I guess since the Constitution was put in place and since the Revolutionary War was won, we've had people that have been trying to undermine that. And again, lots of things that tie back into that directly, but I would say statehood is really, really vital. And that's the biggest threat I see in Utah right now, is that we don't understand statehood.
You really nailed it when you said we don't understand it, because we don't value it. We don't understand it, and we don't value it. And I feel like one of the most pressing issues that we have right now is ignorance and apathy. And I just see our citizens, these are good people. The people that live in Utah are overwhelmingly, amazingly good people, including our legislature. I think
Right.
we have really good people in the legislature, but they do not understand the proper role of government. They are not educated in it. They do not understand that they are violating their oath that they took to the Constitution with many of the decisions, many of the bills they pass. They're literally violating that very sacred oath that they took themselves, and they don't even realize it because they are uneducated on
Yeah.
the Constitution that they took an oath to. And then I think in citizens, there's a huge problem with apathy. Citizens are not willing to get involved, get educated, get out there, actually do something, and find out who is running and who you are. And I find when I am, out talking to people, I go to events and go to meetings, I'm constantly like, people will be wearing a shirt of yours, or, ask for a sign, or ask people, do they want to sign? And I hear every single time that I'm talking, somebody will go, oh, I've never heard of Phil Lyman, which is understandable, which I totally understand. But this is a really serious problem, because how do people know that you're there? We have this amazing system in Utah, so people can know who's running, who's there, who's available, who they have to choose from, instead of just like who they've heard of before. We have this amazing system. We just went through that system. We just had that system 2 weeks ago, the caucus convention system. So we just had
Right.
convention 2 weeks ago. And out, the people that go to convention, they are very committed. They are very educated. I don't agree with all of them. I do not like go, oh yes, we're all, we're
Right.
all in together. We all think alike. We all think exactly the same. We do not. We have these amazing discussions. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? Or, well, I like this, and and we share and we talk to each other. We're not all aligned, but what we do is we're all aligned in wanting to secure our freedoms, wanting to secure our government. And I found this year, I found that the delegates were amazingly interested in being educated and really fulfilling their commitment to do it. They spent how many hours, from 7 in the morning till midnight, literally,
Yeah. Yeah.
at the convention. That is just incredible to me. And so many stayed. Most people, by far, the high majority stayed. And, that's where we voted as delegates. We voted on who we wanted to represent the Republican Party on the primary ballot. And, Phil, that it was you and it was Governor Pronouns, Spencer Cox, that were in the election. And I can't really remember exactly how that turned out. What vote did you get? What percentage of votes did you get?
67.54.
So 67, almost 70% of the people attending there that met you and met Spencer Cox, Governor Cox, that met both of you and talked to both of you and vetted both of you and asked you the questions and looked you in the eye. You're telling me that almost 70% of them said they wanted you to be their governor and not a Governor pronounced Spencer?
Right. Yeah. And it wasn't an like you say, it was not an uninformed vote. It wasn't it wasn't a game. They were very serious about it.
They were. And they weren't a bunch of, I know that Governor Cox paints, it was very sad. His speech at convention really was, I thought, very against what he claims his disagreeing better. I felt like, that is not a really great way, in my personal, very self-righteous opinion. That wasn't a very good way to disagree better. That seemed like a really negative way to disagree. That seemed like a really very call you out for disagreeing with me way to disagree. But the people were not, and I know everyone has their opinions on the people, but I know a lot of the people that were there, a lot of the delegates are not what I would even consider conservative. They're not people that are super like-minded with myself. They were from all walks of life, from all over there. And what they are 100% is ordinary, everyday people. They're
Right.
just middle class, ordinary,
Right.
and sometimes not even middle class. They're just ordinary, people that most of them don't run for office in very many capacities. They're just citizens that want to restore our state and our government.
Well, the other side wants to paint us out as right-wing extremists, I think was the word that was used, and that's not the truth. The truth is that I think most of the delegates and most of the people in Utah truly believe in their heart that individuals make better decisions than government does for their lives. That parents are probably in a better position to make health decisions for their children than the governor's office. And that's what we've seen these last 3 years is a governor's office that wants to tell us how to handle our health issues, how to handle our businesses. He's recruiting businesses to Utah. That used to be a private sector thing, to go out and recruit businesses and build the business.
Exactly.
He's advising us on our philanthropy, and the One Utah whatever program of now wanting employers to report their employees' philanthropy and give them paid time off to do charity work and then to report that to the state. It's really creepy. I mean, and not to mention the DEI stuff, which was he was the champion of DEI. He was committed to that. Got a lot of the COVID money, the ESSER funds, the elementary school and secondary education relief funds, that were contingent on his commitment to DEI, and he said that before he even took office, and now he's calling that evil, and he's saying that he's a big fan of the convention system, and what we saw there was not an attack on delegates. It was an attack on Republicans. It was an attack on the Republican Party by someone who I hold firmly is not a Republican. He's got an R by his name, but he is not a Republican. There's nothing about the Republican Party that he likes. He doesn't like our presidential nominee. He really likes the Democrat presidential nominee. Has fought against the Republicans on every step, mocks us, criticizes us, and I just hope that Utah recognizes that the Republicans in Utah recognize that if they vote for Spencer Cox, they're voting for someone who truly has disdain for everything that the Republican Party is. And I'm with you. There's lots of room. It's a big tent. There's lots of room for moderation and different ideas about lifestyle and everything else. But at the end of the day, it's like we are a Republican Party and we have a right to our processes, and those are very much under attack by Spencer Cox and the establishment.
Yes, when he went to the caucus, he was like all excited. I'm so excited to be here at the caucus meeting. But when he went to convention and when people disagreed with him, he did not like being disagreed with at all. And he really suffered emotionally from that, people disagreeing with him and not being aligned with him. And so he literally attacked the delegates that were there, and he did, by so doing, he did attack not just our party, but literally our state, because we are required by federal constitution to have a republic form of government, and the Republican Party has a very similar system. It is that we elect representatives, and he attacked that system as well. So it was kind of, I found it, I was really surprised by it.
I was surprised too. But I don't think it was fake, and I don't think it was a mistake. I don't think it was out of anger, because his speech was prepared to talk about being booed from 25 years ago, people that have booed. And so it's like, you're coming here to blow this up. You're coming here to
oh dang, we just lost.
Okay. He really was coming to kind of blow up the convention, I felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought the convention was really amazing.
Did I lose you?
Yeah, you did, but you're back. I can hear you. Can you hear me? We lost connection for a minute.
I am so sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. But I don't think you can hear me. Okay. You'll probably have to go out. Okay, we'll get Phil right back. I just want to share with you that I felt like the caucus, the convention system, the convention itself. Okay, can you hear me, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I felt like the convention itself, there were a lot of issues with the registration and a lot of issues with the way it was organized. And I know it's super hard to organize an event with 4,000 people, 4,000 delegates. It's really hard. So I'm not one that likes to, attack the people who have just as volunteers did it, but boy, I hope we learn a lot, because one of the things I hope we learn is stop using technology. It takes so much more time and you can't audit it. So I pray that somebody will have enough brains to figure that out, that we will not continue. We just love technology so much. We just are so excited about it that we can't think straight. There's a great place for it, but
True.
that is not the place. So, Phil, I want to ask you a few questions. These are going to be tough. I know you're going to have to think about this, but
Okay.
our present governor is denying, but we do have, according to ICE, not according to Governor Cox, but according to ICE, that he is inviting people that are here illegally to come to our state. How do you feel about people, coming to our state that are not in our United States legally? How do you feel about inviting them and having them come here into our state?
Well, the designation of an ICE state, or of a sanctuary state, was done by ICE, and I've talked to the ICE people, the employees that work for ICE, and they're proud of Bernanke for making the statement, because they said it's absolutely the case. So Spencer can say anyone that says that is lying to you. The inconvenience of that is that it's not a lie at all. We were designated as a sanctuary state, and still are, coincidentally, on the records of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, I don't want illegal immigration. I think we've got to figure out how to help people get here legally and follow a better path. But Utah, because of our policies, is not only a magnet for illegal immigration, but we're a magnet for illegal immigrants with criminal intent, because of our sanctuary policies, of not detaining people longer than 72 hours. And in a recent town hall meeting, I was there with the governor's people, and they said, well, we don't believe in breaking federal law. We support federal law, meaning that talking about the sanctuary state. And it's like, well, okay, well, if the federal government says no matter how bad of a crime they commit, if they're a non-citizen, you have to let them out after 72 hours, and we do that, then we're not protecting our communities. And we've got known rapists. A couple of years ago, 3 individuals that filmed an assault, and they got 48 months probation. And people are like, why probation? It's like, oh, because we believe in following federal law. And it's not, that's not a virtue, when it's letting people into your communities that are going to harm your children. So we are.
Bill, I think that works into, I think this is a really great time to kind of explain to people that, we say we believe in following federal law, but federal law is violating the Constitution, and the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. And Article 4, Section 4 requires the federal government, is specifically the executive branch, the president, to secure our borders. So they have laws that conflict with the Constitution, and so they're saying we're going to obey the law that is in violation of the Constitution rather than adhering to the Constitution itself. As well as Utah has our own Constitution, and we're not adhering to that. We're adhering to unconstitutional federal law instead of the Constitution of the United States and the Utah State Constitution.
Right. And God bless Texas for standing up and calling it out, that, hey, this is an invasion.
Yes.
And we have a right to protect ourselves against invasion. Well, Utah's being invaded as well.
We are being invaded.
And we have to acknowledge that. And it's not organic. It's not just people that are looking for a better life. It is an invasion. And I'm afraid when we find out what the agenda is behind it, that we're gonna wish we had taken measures to keep the illegal immigration, at least under some sort of control. We're completely overwhelmed with it now. And I want to say one more thing on this, Dalane, and that's the whisper campaign that's gone out, is that I am criticizing sheriffs. And any sheriff that knows me knows that I don't criticize sheriffs. They're my favorite elected office in the whole country, as well as most other people, because they
Agreed.
are because they have political accountability. They protect our stuff. They protect our security, and so it's coming from the governor's office that I am criticizing sheriffs, and sheriffs are trying to do their job. Judges, I think, would like to do their jobs. Under Governor Cox, detentions are down 67%. Of non-citizens, and we can say, well, that's the Biden administration. Whether it's the Biden administration or the Cox administration, Utah doesn't have to go along with that. And if our prisons and our jails are good enough for our citizens, they're good enough for our non-citizens. And I would just, as a governor, I wouldn't sue the federal government. I would defy the federal government and let them sue the state of Utah over compliance, just as they did Governor Abbott. And it's a much more effective route to just say we are a state and we're not going to put up with this.
Yeah, and that we call that nullification.
Right.
And we have the state of Utah's in the presence of nullification right now on marijuana laws because it's against the law federally. But Utah, as well as many states, just said, thanks for sharing, but you know what? You don't have authority in this, and we're nullifying your unconstitutional law because the federal government has no power in that arena.
Yeah.
They don't have the power to take control of our lands. But we've been sitting back for so many decades, allowing them to. Now we just think it's okay. We just think it's normal.
The other thing, as we're talking about sanctuary cities, is it's not even defying a law; it's defying an defying an administrative rule.
Yes.
So they make these administrative rules that say if you're going to detain non-citizens, you have to meet this long list of qualifications in your facility. Which most counties just say we just can't do it. It's not feasible for us to meet those qualifications. Well, that's not the law. It's not the Constitution.
No.
It's administrative rule, and it's designed again to be almost impossible, untenable for counties to meet. I think Salt Lake County has 10 beds that meet the qualifications, and that's it in Utah. And so yeah, we're not dealing with laws. We're dealing with administrative rules, and we need to recognize that too.
Very good point, because those administrative laws are written by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats.
Right.
They can't be held accountable. They can't be unelected because they're not elected. Okay, so did you have something else that you wanted to finish up there?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Good question.
All right. Well, I would like to ask you, and I mean, I'll ask you because then it will save people having to go look at your voting record. But we had a bill in the state of Utah to protect girls' sports and to forbid biological boys in participating on girls' sports in school. And I want to know if you were the governor. Now, our Governor Cox did veto that bill. It did pass the House. It did pass the Senate. It got on his desk. He vetoed it. I would like to know if you were governor at the time, or I know how you voted, but how would you have voted if you were the governor? What would you have done on that bill?
Oh, I would have signed that bill in a heartbeat, and would have been promoting the bill from the start and showing support from the governor's office on it. Yeah, HB 11 was a good bill, and it's astonishing, really, that someone would veto a bill that says that in high school sports, girls' sports are reserved for girls. such a simple thing, and an important bill. And it's funny that we even have to write a bill that says that. But then it's
unbelievable. We need a bill. I can't even believe we need a bill, but we do. We do.
And then apparently, even with the bill, we still get the governor vetoing, and that is woke ideology at its core, and that is not what Utah is. That's not what we're about. And I mean, it's amazing that a politician. This is one of those things that I look at, and I think you cannot do that in Utah and expect to get elected again. You cannot use your pronouns to a bunch of grade schoolers and expect that you're going to get elected again, and things like that. That over and over, I look at Spencer Cox, and I really believe that he's unelectable if people would just open their eyes to what's going on. And of course, the media props him up, and people are, they're reluctant to be mean in Utah. So we're still fighting that fight. But someone that vetoes a bill like that should not hold public office. I mean, besides that, wanting to appoint the attorney general and the
Yeah.
treasurer and the auditor and the state school board and things like that. They're just like, you can't be the governor, Spencer. Sorry.
I would, yeah, it does. Vetoing that bill made him unfit to be in any elected office in the state of Utah. Absolutely any. But you mentioned something, and I want to explain to our viewers and listeners, because you were talking about there is a bill, there was a bill, it's going to come back, and it's the bill that simply says that the AG and the auditor and the treasurer in the state of Utah will no longer be elected by the people, but handpicked and assigned by the governor. And so you made it clear that you don't agree with that.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so interesting that anybody would think that that is a good idea, but it did have some traction this year. It did get killed, thank goodness. But I promise you, it will be back. They work on these things for years. They are very slow. They take their time, and I'm interested in why they like how does he justify that the citizens don't know how to elect their own auditor and treasurer, why it would be better to have him. And that it's a different bill, the same principle that our state school board should be appointed by the governor and not elected by the people. And that it is difficult because most people don't have any idea what those numbers are.
I mean, I've got a theory with Governor Cox, and it's that he believes that power comes from the top down. And so he looks at these things and thinks, well, I could do a better job if I could just appoint these people. We could do a better job. And he looks to the Biden administration and it's like, oh, I'm going to, the image of him tipping his glass to Joe Biden is so emblematic of the deference that he has for federal power. And then he turns around and wants to tell counties what they can do and take away the authority of the sheriffs, take away the authorities of the local clerks, and not just him, but legislators as well that are really seeing that, okay, now that I'm in the legislature, we'll make all the decisions. We have all the experts. We're smarter than all these water districts out across the state. So we'll take over water. We'll centralize all of this stuff. And Spencer he believes that things run smoother if power is concentrated in the hands of fewer people. And it's completely counter to a Republican form of government where we believe that power should be dispersed to the maximum extent possible, right down to the individual, and those individual rights and family rights, and then the statehood, pushing back against the federal government, not being partners with the federal government, but being a state and standing between the federal government and the people. And that's what I see with Spencer. And so the fact that he wants to appoint those positions seems congruent with his king-like aspirations. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he does seem to want to concentrate power, and we know that whenever power is concentrated, it is almost always, without exception, abused and used for tyranny against the people. And the founders, that's the genius of the Constitution. One of the geniuses is not just the division, the three branches of government, but all through the Constitution, there's a division of power, how they break up who can impeach, who can remove from office, the representatives versus the senators, and all the way through it, who has the power to secure the borders.
Right.
Elected sheriffs, the only elected law enforcement is the sheriffs, and why they wanted that to be a sheriff. And the Electoral College, again, to break up that power. It's
absolutely
just amazing all through it. So I want to ask you, I just wanted to ask you, as you know, our current governor is the head of the National Governors Association. How important is it to you to be along or to be the president of the National Governors Association?
I've studied the National Governors Association a lot, and I've paid attention to who attends. And I don't know that a state has the ability to opt out, but I have seen that governors like Kristi Noem don't go to the meetings and they don't show up. But yeah, the National Governors Association is a creation of the Carnegie Institute. It's driven by the Rockefeller Foundation, by the WEF, by the Carnegie Institute. Again, the fact that you've got a Republican governor there is really symbolic to them to say, look, we have, even though we're this leftist effort, we have a governor, as I think it was, I can't remember which large paper said, the Utah governor, a Republican who's not afraid to be woke, and that's why he's the president of the Governors Association. No, I would boycott the National Governors Association to the extent that I could, but I wouldn't participate in it. I certainly wouldn't want to be the president of the National Governors Association.
That's reason enough right there, as if you needed more, and as if there aren't many more. That's a great reason. The National Governors Association, as you stated, they're very transparent about their mission. They're very, very woke and very lefty. And our predecessor governor, Gary Herbert, was also the head of the National Governors Association, which was very important to him. And we can opt out. We do have to pay dues at that time. So 10 years ago, it was $16,000 a year that we paid to be a part of the National Governors Association. So I assume if you don't pay your dues, they would probably kick you out or not let you attend, which would not be a problem because you wouldn't want to attend anyway.
No, well, it's like some of these scorecards that we get. Utah is the #1 state in the nation for this and this, and you look at who's saying that. And I'm not saying that Utah is not #1 in so many areas, but so often the grades that we're getting are from leftist organizations. It's like, we do not want an A from Forbes magazine. We don't want to be, touted as the greatest, place to live by these woke leftist think tanks.
No, that's not something to brag about, for sure. Speaking of report cards, Utah is the 10th highest taxed state in the nation. And I want to know how you feel about that and what you intend to do. And I have a follow-up question on that.
I'm very unpopular, saying that the biggest tax decreases in the history of the state are not really tax decreases. But I'm a CPA. I do people's tax returns. I see when the federal government does away with the dependency exemption, that Utah also does away with the dependency exemption. We get a windfall of taxes, and then we do an offset of the income tax rate to account for some of that or most of that. So if the effective tax rate goes, up, and we adjust it down to balance it, if it's break even, that's not a tax cut. Yeah, we go, this is the biggest tax cut in the history of Utah. It's like, well, let's be honest about how that really funnels through, because we did a major tax cut in 2020, and then from 2020 to 2021 we saw a $3.2 billion increase in income tax revenue. That wasn't all because people were making more money. It was because we were collecting more income taxes from the same people that we were collecting from just the year before, and people know it. And the study that you reference there also takes into account all the other taxes, the business fees, the car registrations, the property taxes. Some of them are under the control of the governor, some are under the control of the legislature, some of them are local, but all of it, you can't go anywhere at any level of government in Utah and find very many government officials who don't love every tax dollar they can get their hands on, and they love to grow. There, we got this, this gigantic growth of government. Last year, the last 12 months, the highest growth sector was government, with 12,700 jobs added. The next closest was healthcare and education, which is also is kind of pseudo government. So you've got, these, and they dwarf all the other sectors of growth in Utah combined. That should be, there should be sirens going off when people see that in Utah, because that is not growth that feeds families. That's growth that takes money out of our pockets to sustain it, for decades to come. So we've got to turn that ship around. It's scary to me.
I agree with you. It really is getting out of control. I have one more question, and then we're going to open it up to callers. And, I need to memorize our call-in number because I'm afraid I'm going to get it wrong. I know it's 385, and I think it's 899-1234. It's 385, I think 899. I'm trying to find where I got it written somewhere, which is nowhere. But I will repeat that. Meanwhile, I'm going to ask you a question. We have a senator and a House member who are sponsoring a bill right now to add another tax, because we need another one. I'm so impressed with myself. I got it right. It's 385-899-1234. I have attempted to memorize it. I didn't trust myself. So feel free to call in. I'm going to ask Phil one more question. We have in the Utah state right now, we have a bill that is being proposed, and it is to start a new tax, the service sales tax. Right now, if you buy something that is an object, you pay sales tax on it. But most service industries do not collect or pay taxes on the service. If you buy a furnace, then you have to pay tax on the furnace, but you don't pay tax on the labor to install. And so, really, Utah has every tax that I've ever heard of. We have it except for the service tax. So we want to make sure Utah has every possible tax that there is. And so they're in the Senator McKell is the sponsor of that. And this came up, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago. And we got some business owners together, and we became a mighty force, and we fought this, and we did a petition, and we had the signatures, and we fought it hard. And Brad Wilson was the Speaker of the House, and he was not very happy with us at all. He's actually still mad at me about it, which is really sad for me. And they did end up repealing it because the public got aware. They came out and said, no, you won't. We will take you out. And what I want people to understand, this isn't just like, oh, it's only going to affect service industries. This will affect, I talk about inflation. This, and they did admit, had to admit, because we had the numbers there. We proved that this would cost inflation by 30%, because you're going to pay that service tax on everything that get before it gets to you, before the service even gets to you, because the service industry will have to pay the service tax on getting the goods and the services that they get in order to provide you. So it's just a rolling stone kind of thing. It just keeps collecting. So it would be very egregious, very, very damaging to Utah. It'll really damage our economy, very much damage our inflation is already so bad. I can't even believe that, although I do believe they have the audacity to bring this back. And so I've shared my hand far too much, Bill. And I would like to know how you feel about this bill, because now you know how I feel about it. But how do you feel about this bill?
Well,
I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I fought that bill as well. That was my my first session, 2019, and the tax reform bill, and it had all kinds of stuff like that. The biggest tax cut in history. Again,
right?
Just people taking victory laps for doing the biggest tax cut in history. Well, except for the gas tax that we're going to increase, and except for the tax on services, and people would say, well, it's not fair. It's not fair that you can go and buy a lawnmower and you pay sales tax, but if you hire someone to mow your lawn, you don't pay sales tax. And it was like, okay, well, let's drop the sales tax on the lawnmower purchase.
Exactly.
Too. It's like,
I love it. Let's make it fair.
That's not what we want. We want to tax everybody on everything every time they turn around. And it was such false logic. I was astonished. And again, when I first came into the legislature, and I love my colleagues. I really do. There's so many good people. But there is like this mass hypnosis that happens on Capitol Hill. And I would look around the room, as like, these are grown men and women who have businesses and wear cowboy boots or whatever, and they're like, this is not conservative policy. This is growing government. It's growing the public sector at the cost of the private sector. No matter how you slice it, you're taking more money. And then to vote against that bill in 2019 was it was like the beginning of the end for anybody in the legislature. It was like, that is not the way. That's not disagreeing better. That's like retribution, vindication.
Yes.
Vindictive.
You will pay. If you vote against that bill, you will pay, and you will be in trouble.
So yeah, and thank goodness the people stepped forward and said, we disagree. We don't think this is the best thing for us, and we're going to vote against it. Yeah, that referendum that's historic. And so, but yeah, I agree with you 100% on your logic there.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, if anybody would like to call in for the question, we just have a few minutes left. It's 385-899-1234. 2134. Okay, so Phil, there are a lot of issues in the state of Utah. We do have a lot of things that we're contending with. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is education, because education is one of the biggest places where we spend the most amount of money, and which again is not my opinion, but is just a fact. It's also not, it is not accounted for. The education arm, the State Board of Education says we are the fourth branch of government. They take the money and they don't feel that they should have to answer to anyone else. They're like, we are accountable to us. We shouldn't be accountable to anyone else. And I do know from talking to Ben Leishman, who is kind of over the money, that, well, they do accounting, but you wouldn't approve of the counting. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. They say, well, we spent $1,000 at Walmart, we spent $1,500 at Home Depot, but they don't say what they actually did with the money, like where it actually went. And we have, my husband and I have a couple of businesses. I do all the books for that. And, I have to account for what we, just, you can't just put it in a category. I have to account for what we actually bought with that money. And so, what do you think? How do you feel about the spending and the auditing of the education system?
Well, first of all, I admire your bookkeeping.
You wouldn't if you saw it.
I'm an accountant, I mean, it's called accounting for a reason. You account for where did the money go, how is it being used, and so I'm all about being accountable, and I enjoy that, the financial side of things. So the fact that people have miscategorized things, a lot of times it's an indication that they're either they don't take that public trust seriously, or they're just making a mess on purpose. Anyway, so that's a whole separate accounting issue. As far as education, we've got an education regime in Utah that demands obedience and compliance with their agenda, and it flows from the top. I'm not being critical of the people that are in it, but it also punishes anybody that steps out of line. Teachers are afraid of the state school board or their own school board. School boards are, the 42 different school boards and superintendents are expected to, lock arms and march in solidarity with the state school board. And the losers in that are, again, because you're getting this concentration of power. No one dares defy that, and so you get this concentration of power. What should be dispersed out to the school level, not the district level, but to the actual school level, where the parents are involved and the parents are making decisions. And I have a vision for Utah's education that would do just that. And instead of parents pulling their kids out of public schools, I think they would say, hey, this is our public school, and we're going to be heard, and we're not going to be prosecuted for disrupting a meeting. We're going to actually, help run things. And there will always be some disagreement. I'm a big fan of backpack funding, that the funding goes with the student. But by dispersing the power in that Department of Education throughout the state, I think we would transform education and public education. Our public schools would become places where kids want to be, where parents want their kids to be, and I think we could see dramatic improvement if we would overcome.
Okay, great. We lost Phil for just a second. Hopefully we'll have him right back. And I do want to talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ask Phil about where he stands on that, and also social emotional learning, which is really connected, but they're different, but it is connected to it. Phil, I was just glad to have you back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I
Okay.
don't know how to turn off calls when a call comes in.
Okay, yeah, that happens. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, what is your take on the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion? What's your take on that? And what would you do about it if we had it in the state of Utah?
DEI is one of those things that I think the further it gets in the rearview mirror, and hopefully it's getting in the rearview mirror, the more evil we'll see that it really was, and see it for what it is. I was just listening to Neil Ferguson talk this morning about, DEI is the path to hell for higher education, and it seems a little extreme, but when you look at the effects of it and kind of the ideology that drives it, it really is so detrimental. It's detrimental to people's sense of individuality. It does the opposite. It's like the Stalin redefining words thing. Diversity means that we all think the same. Equity means that only certain people are, taken care of. Equality, is the opposite of equality. So diversity, equity, and inclusion are really a recipe for just the opposite of that. And then not surprising, with we know the tactics of the adversary, and these movements are really, really damaging to our kids and to our institutions.
Yeah, they are very damaging to our kids. Absolutely. Yeah.
I
And now there are people who say we're not teaching it in Utah. And like we have passed laws to make it illegal to teach. But as an educator myself, we don't have it at our school, but I do have students that come to our school and say that that's the reason that they are in our school is because it was happening in their school and their parents were quite sick of it and they couldn't get it. What you have is, it's difficult. It's a very difficult thing to get out because you have teachers that were taught, trained, and educated in DEI that think it is right and think it is correct. And even if it's not in our curriculum, they have been taught it at college and they feel good about it. They like it and they feel very justified. And we want to have local control. We don't really want to be telling teachers every little thing that they should do and what they can't do. There are things that are completely inappropriate. That's one of them. But it isn't going to just get out because you passed a law.
Disagree better is a flavor of DEI. Honestly, there was an article that came out today that said college professors are developing systems to train parents on how to teach their college students how to disagree better. And that's it's a similar it's a similar endeavor. It's like, well, let's decide institutionally that we're going to train parents to educate their college students on how to disagree better. Whatever happened to just being free to speak and free to express yourself and free to make a really stupid statement and pay the price for it, or make a really honest statement and pay the price for that. It's like it's just nuts.
It's interesting because we like you were saying about inclusion, and diversity, you can be diverse as long as you still agree with me, as long as you don't say anything I don't want to hear or don't like. And as parents, it's been our job since we had children, is to teach them decorum and how to behave and how to, speak up for ourselves and stand up, but also do it in a way that is acceptable, that is respectful. That is something that I have actually really admired since the very first day that I met you and when I saw you and see you testify on the floor of the House and in committee. You always do it with amazing decorum. I agree with your sentiment. I tend to get a little bit more passionate, but you are able to maintain such composure when you speak truth and when you very eloquently but very politely call people out. I don't know, maybe you're so used to yourself, you might not realize what a gift that is, because everyone isn't able to speak the truth in such a diplomatic manner. And that is a gift that you have. And I do think that is a great thing, a quality to have as a governor, because you are going to have people that disagree. You are going to have to call people out. People are going to not agree with you and like you. And you have that ability to work with everybody and speak the truth. And you have the courage to speak the truth, but do it with diplomacy.
I am by nature a mild person and a considerate person. And Jody, my wife, always says, I don't know how you find your voice when you get angry, but sometimes it does take getting angry, and to really be able to speak, and hopefully I don't become abrasive, I can be when I get really fired up, I get really passionate. and people go away. Some people have gone away really offended with things that I've said, but hopefully, if nothing else, it's genuine. It's not me trying to be mean. Some things just require the use of strong words.
They do. Yeah. The truth is what's really important. Okay, Phil, our time is up, but how do people get in contact with you to learn more about you or to, help you in your campaign?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And social media is fantastic. We've got a Twitter account, uh, Instagram account that's doing really well, Facebook, of course, TikTok, a little bit, and then my website, Lyman for Utah, and that's FOR lyman4utah.com. But there is a movement going on, and we're part of it, and we're participating in it as fully as we can. And so I would say to people, join the movement. Follow us, get a yard sign, and participate.
Yeah, because you know what? Just letting people know that you're there and that you exist is very powerful. It really, really does help people very much know because they vote for who they know, who they've
Super
heard of.
powerful. Super
Yes.
powerful.
Yeah. So it's lyman4utah.com.
Calm.
Thank you. lyman4utah.com. Go on there and there's ways to get signs, there's a way to donate, there's a way to participate, dropping flyers off. Get engaged, get involved. Please do something. This is a really, really important year. I know we always say it, but we're so far over the edge. lyman4utah.com. Thank you so much for being with us, Phil. I really appreciate
Thank you,
your
Dalane.
time.
Always
Thank
a
you for
pleasure.
running. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. God bless
See
you.
you.
Thank
You
you.
too. See you. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, I told you that would be great because he is such a great man and really, really thrilled to have him with us. We have another guest, which I'm very delighted to have with us, and a great man that I've known for quite some time, and he is Frank Mylar. And Frank Mylar has been an attorney for over 30 years, and he has been in the trenches fighting for not just being an attorney, not just being a great attorney, because you know what? I mean, we all know some attorneys that we really don't really admire. We all do. And some of us know a few attorneys that we all do admire. And the way that I got to know Frank was because being up at the Capitol as a citizen, working on our private rights, just our personal individual rights, but especially on protecting the right of the unborn, the lives of our young unborn babies, and also for families, children who are being removed from their families because the Child Protective Services was angry with them because they didn't comply or without evidence and different issues like that, things that are very important to us personally in our daily lives. And whenever we had a need, we would call Frank and say, Frank, we need you. We need help. We need your advice. And Frank was always right there. And Frank has never charged us a dime. He does need to make a living. And he has, he does take on real cases. And he is one of the candidates for Attorney General for the state of Utah. And I just want to share with you that I do know all four of the candidates. I know them all well. Now we're down to three candidates, I believe, because some of the candidates decided to get signatures, and one of them. And so now we're in a primary for three. But Frank is really a man of God. He is he's very well educated. He knows his field of law, but he also is, I think, a really important thing that is important to me, and I think should be important to everyone, is the Alliance Defending Freedom is an amazing organization, national organization that when you're in trouble, if you have something happen like Jack Phillips, where he's this nice guy that owns a bakery, he's minding his own business, his business is open to everybody. He's had plenty of gay customers come in and buy things from him. Two of his customers come in and say, we want you to bake us a cake for our gay wedding, or our gay event. And he said, you know what, you can buy any of my cakes, but I don't feel like it's a violation of my constitutional right of freedom of religion and conscience. I don't want to participate in that, but I'm very happy to sell you anything. So, of course, they sued him. Alliance Defending Freedom is the one that came to bat and fought for him. Frank is the attorney in the state of Utah. I think it's called a guardian in the state of Utah who represents them and works for them and has done it. And it's been so much fun as I've gone to different meetings and things. I've gotten to know and meet some of the people that Frank has actually defended and worked for. and then he did it pro bono. He did it for free. And so he's very much in the service of us as people. And he is the only candidate who's truly, well, he is by far the best prepared and has the most experience and knows best what's going on. So with that, Frank, we welcome you to the show.
Thanks. Thank you,
So
Dalane.
happy to have you with us. I just want to let everyone know you're listening to or watching KMMU. You can get with us on KMMU.org on your computer. You can also find us on Rumble, on YouTube, on X, and KMMU.org. So we're really happy to have you with us.
Thank
Frank,
you.
what is it that made you decide that you should throw your hat in the ring and run for Attorney General?
Well, thanks. Well, first of all, I actually ran in 2000 against Mark Shurtleff.
Yes.
And I said at that time, we need an attorney, not a politician.
Yes.
Unfortunately, people went for the politician. And Mark did a great job of saying that he believes everything Frank believes. And, and a lot of people believed it. And so we found out later that it wasn't quite the same in a lot of respects. And so ever since then, people have been asking me to run for Attorney General. And the last one that was very persistent was actually the chief of police of Cottonwood Heights, Robbie Russo. He continued to say, hey, you should run. I didn't feel like I was going to run against Sean. I didn't like everything he did, but he did a halfway decent job on a number of things. And I just wasn't going to run against him. And then I find out he kind of, the last minute, declares in December that he's not running. And that opens up the field. I think the other three candidates were already primed and ready to go on that. It took me by surprise. And then I looked and saw who was running. And honestly, if there was an excellent attorney with excellent experience, I wouldn't be running. That's all there is to it. But this is a hugely important office. It's literally one of the sleepers in the state, in all states, because if it's done correctly, it is one of the most important jobs, even more important than legislators and governor in some respects, especially when it relates to your constitutional rights. And I had been, of course, litigating cases for over 36 years. I have been fighting these battles, as you said, and I enjoy fighting them. I want to make a difference. That's why I became a lawyer, to make a difference in public policy and in fighting these kinds of cases. I was so pleased when I went into private practice and I found Alliance Defending Freedom. And I went to one of their, I actually found the founders in 1996 at an anti-pornography conference. And all of them were from the Mises Justice Department. And they had basically formed this. They found almost every Christian and religious organization in the country to say, we're in trouble. We've got to fight the ACLU. We won't be free to speak our mind on religious issues. We won't have pro-life protections. We won't have protections for the family if we don't do something drastic right now. And that's how it was kind of birthed, the Alliance Defending Freedom. And so, yes, I do very much love that organization. It's a wonderful organization. I've taught lawyers there. I've taught law students through the Blackstone Fellowship, which is a wonderful program to help, as a lot of our law students are not in very conservative schools because almost all law schools are liberal. Mm-hmm. And to be able to go in the Blackstone Fellowship is a breath of fresh air to conservative young attorneys. And so I got to teach there once. I've taught at some of their seminars that I've handled, of course, a number of cases that they've been involved in various degrees. And so this passion of mine to help in these constitutional areas, I feel like I can replicate that 50 times over if I'm actually an attorney general. There's a lot of things that I could really speak into that haven't been spoken into. Things like what happened at during COVID. No one was telling people what they could and couldn't do based upon their constitutional rights. It was just Department of Health edicts, sometimes edicts from the governor, and everyone just had to make assumptions. And, we saw various, I think Trent Stagg did something different in Riverton. So I know a lot of rural areas were not going along with the masks and some things like that because my sons and I traveled throughout the state on motorcycles during COVID, and we're refreshed to find that it was a different environment. And so these kinds of things are important. People are being fired from their jobs. I help get people to get religious exemptions, during COVID. I had no idea I was going to run for Attorney General then, but it's just a prime example of what actually an Attorney General should have been doing, helping people. Not it's a shame if anyone lost their job in Utah, and they did. I know because I've talked to people.
Oh, yes. I know many people that did.
And others felt coerced to getting the vaccine, or they would lose their job or lose something that was important to them. And there just needed to be a voice speaking out on constitutional issues. And that voice really belongs to the Attorney General when it comes to these kinds of things. And so I know there's a number of things. There's the women's sports issues that I've had a passion on, women's bathrooms. This is something that didn't catch me by surprise. These new Title IX regs, the Alliance Defending Freedom's been ready for these for a couple of years.
Yes.
We knew they were coming. Yeah. And so, these things, I want to fight these with a passion, and I have the opportunity to do so in a much more concerted way. They'll have much.
Frank froze. Hopefully that connection will come right back. Yeah, Frank, that's a really, really important point that you bring up, because we have a law in place. There's already been lawsuits. It's already stayed, and we will have more lawsuits, which we knew that when we passed the law. We knew there would be lawsuits. But there'd be lawsuits either way. If we didn't pass the law, there'd be lawsuits from families, girls and their parents, for letting biological boys play on girl sports. We also knew that there would be biological boys that want to play on girl sports and that they would sue. So we knew that either way there'd be lawsuits. So this is a huge, really important issue for the state of Utah. We're already in a lawsuit on it. So where the AG stands on this is extremely important, vitally important. We need an AG that is going to stand up, that not only has the ability to fight this with their skills, but also the ideology and the mentality. And that is where I think you shine more than anyone else by far. I trust that you would absolutely, without question, fight this.
Yeah, and I think to the other candidates, it's all theoretical. They've never been in these fights, any of the fights. I mean, not even one. If these issues like parental rights, religious freedom, women's sports, all these things were so important to them, and they were attorneys, why wouldn't they have at least filed one suit to vindicate one person's constitutional right? And that's my real concern here. Is one, they don't really care about the issues, or two, they're just not plugged in, and they're really, kind of floating out there. They may feel like they're conservative. I don't know. I mean, but they've never done anything conservative, and they can't lead out. That's really the concern here. They really can't lead out in these areas if they don't know what they're talking about, and they've never fought these battles before.
And we're in this battle. We're already in it. So we need somebody that can just step in and just continue on and just pick this up for us, because this is literally, this battle isn't a battle. It isn't one issue. This is a battle for women existing as women.
Yes.
This is literally saying women count. They have space. If you don't have girls' sports, you don't have women's privacy. You don't have women's sovereignty. You don't have women separation as men and women. You violated completely and violated and annihilated the sex of women.
Yeah.
Issue.
One thing I'm really just kind of sick and tired of is this focus being on this bizarre person who used to be mentally ill if you thought you were a woman and a man. I don't know where that happened. We chucked science out the door when it came to these issues, honestly. And none of these people care at all about these girls who do not care if somebody's on testosterone blockers or not. It has no relevance to them.
None.
They have privacy rights. They have religious freedom rights. And they have safety rights when it comes to sports. Because most of these sports, men are a danger, a safety issue to these women. Basketball, soccer, you name it, there's a lot of these issues where there's clear safety issues as well. But, you know, like what happened, I think, in Connecticut, in the Alliance Defending Freedom is fighting for these women there. These girls should have gotten the silver and gold medals in the track mile run. I ran the mile in high school and in college, 1,500 meters in college. And so I really resonate with these issues. And just to think, you know, a not very great boy will blow away all the best girls in the mile.
And that's just a fact. That's easy to document, very easy to see and document.
Yeah.
And they're doing it all over the country. They're not even good at boys.
No.
They're 550th place in the boys,
Yep.
and they'll come into the girls and just wipe out all the girls.
Yep.
And take all the trophies and the prize and the scholarships and just
Scholarships. Yes.
Yeah. And you know, I just want to say, I think it's really important to mention, you know, this is not serving these biological boys. We're not doing them any favors. Now, of course, we're not serving the girls, which count and should be served, but the boys, people that have gender dysphoria, it's real, it's painful, and the worst thing you can possibly do is validate a lie.
Yes.
Validating a lie does not make someone feel better. It does not make them get better. It does not help them. It does not help them overcome their mental illness. It actually makes it much worse. And so what we want to do is support people in getting well and healing. Yes. And absolutely, sports are so good for people. 6 kids, my kids, almost all of them played sports, all but one. Yep. Sports are super.
Mine too.
And and then they're very, very helpful. You can learn a lot of lessons. It's really good for your psyche and your body to do sports. There's no reason that transgender people can't have their own sports category, just as women did. Women learned how to play on the boys' sports, not because they couldn't compete, because what you were saying, they would get crushed and it's not the right place. It's inappropriate. Yeah. Women started at the bottom. We started creating our own girls' sports, and the transgender people that want to compete in sports, I totally support it 100% because I do think playing in sports is really important. And I want it to be available to everyone.
But first of all, Title IX was actually passed in I think 1972 or 73 to actually protect women's sports. Right. And what the Biden administration is doing is just pulling the rug out from under that by redefining women. Yeah. You know, and suddenly it means nothing. Means nothing. It means nothing whatsoever. You could end up having all boys on a collegiate basketball team, and they're claiming that they're girls. You know, this is, and I think I had to even push back a little bit. I don't think it's mental illness for some. I think there's a few that are just want to play this game. Yeah. You know, and they think it's really fun. They get notoriety, you know, and all this stuff. And, you know, the sad thing is they're not man enough to realize they have no business cheating, you know, and trying to take away women's trophies and their successes. Why should they give a clout on that? They can compete in boys and men's sports. Yes. That's an alternative.
Yeah. No, they do. They can all play on the boys' sports without any problem. There's no problem on that whatsoever. And if they're not comfortable with that, which is fine, they get to decide if they're comfortable. If they're not, then they can start their own league. They can start their own.
Well, and I don't even think, honestly, I don't think they should be allowed to start their own league. I think that makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, honestly, you're either a boy or a girl. Even Richard Dawkins, the Seminole evolutionist, who doesn't believe in God at all, right? He agrees that the science is clear. The
science is very clear.
What's that?
No scientist can say the science isn't clear. There's boys, there's male, there's female, period. There are no other sexes, and everyone knows that. I mean, it's very scientific. It's very, you know, there's no question about that. There's mental illness is real. And not everyone that is transgender, it has a mental illness. Some have social contagion, no question, or they just think it's fun and they just want to win prizes and trophies for sure. Okay, so Frank, we have another big problem that we have been working on as citizens for many years, and it's kind of come to a head. We've had several bills that have passed the last few years. Representative Ken Ivory has been the sponsor to pass some bills. to get the pornography out of our schools. Now, there are people who say there's no pornography in our schools. I'll invite you to go to rated, RATED, ratedbooks.org, and there's a list of 248, maybe more than that now, 248 pornographic books that are in the public schools in the state of Utah right now. And so I want to know, as the Attorney General for the state of Utah, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like you could do anything about it? What would you do about it?
Real great. This became a passion of mine because years ago, and I actually lectured on it. I've actually fought pornography issues in the courts and won. And so this has been a passion of mine for quite some time. But I was really appalled that during this campaign, someone, I think for Utah Parents United, handed me an Attorney General opinion.
Yes.
And it was really, I love the way they did it. She says, I just want you to read this and tell me what you think of it. She didn't want to bias me one way or the other.
Right.
I was appalled because this attorney that wrote this Attorney General opinion, which means the Attorney General is behind it.
Yes.
Not just an assistant AG when it comes to an official Attorney General opinion.
Right.
And I've seen these before. I've written these kinds of things before. And they were relying upon 3-vote opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court. This was part of what they call a plurality. That means they barely got 5 votes on a technicality issue. And basically it's like this. We agree the matter should be sent to the lower court or whatever the situation is. But no one could agree on the reasoning. But they took the worst the worst opinion, which was by 3 liberal justices, and they basically cited it as precedent that should be followed. And this brief was also citing the American Library Association, which I found out about this years ago. Mike Ferris, who's endorsed my campaign, started Homeschool Legal Defense, also was CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom. He told me years ago in a meeting I was at in Washington, D.C., that the most liberal organization in this country, and this was back in the 90s, was the American Library Association.
Yes.
Because they think that kids should have unfettered access to pornography and every evil thing you can imagine. It's just outrageous. This is not like Salem witch trials of burning books. This is about pornography that never was in the school when you and I were children. I went to public schools all my childhood. We never had anything like this in the library. And what's really ticks me off is that parents have been shut down in school board meetings because these school board leaders do not want to hear the truth. And if it's not fit for them to read, for a parent to read at an adult school board meeting, then it's not fit to have it in the school. That's all there is to it. And so I will work, this will be a priority of mine to work on right away, that we get this garbage out, that we let the schools know that you may be prosecuted criminally if you have this stuff in because it's providing harmful materials to minors.
Frank, that would be really something, because I think one of the biggest problems we have with it is very serious and it is very destructive.
Yes.
When a child is exposed to this pornography as a child, they are so often addicted very, very quickly.
Yes.
Because their brain is still being developed. So it attaches to these things very, very quickly. And the problem is it's very hard to get over the addiction when you get addicted as a child. If you take an addiction as an adult and your brain's already developed, it's a lot easier to overcome the addiction. But when you get addicted to something as a child, the addiction is part of your DNA. It's part of the brain development. So it's a lot harder to overcome. And so that's why it's very, very, very important. And it's really doing a lot of damage to a lot of young people, a lot of students in schools, both boys and girls.
Yes.
But what we also have is we don't really have any consequences. That when the schools violate this, nothing happens to them when they're caught. They go, oh, sorry, darn it, we didn't mean to do that. We'll fix it. And sometimes they don't. But even if they do, nothing happens. So if there's no consequence, there's no real reason, there's no incentive to get it out of the schools. And we see that It's a very egregious process. It's a very lengthy process to get a book out, and it should just be taken out.
It should be very quick. They should take it out and then have debate it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you
Get
do
it
with
out,
this harmful
and then
material. If anything
Yeah.
is harmful, you take it out, do an investigation, and then determine whether it's going to go back in or not.
Exactly.
And so I want to change that complete process to being that we're going to protect kids. That's going to be the default position, not we're going to protect the rights of some pornographer who's disguising themselves as writing novels that youth might be interested in reading.
Exactly. Yes. Okay, that's a really, really important one. And that one is something I feel like we need an AG
Yes.
who really will stand up and do something on that issue.
Absolutely.
So it's vital. It's vital to our future. Okay, another issue that has come up, as you are very aware, Utah State passed a law before Roe versus Wade was overturned. We passed a law in the state of Utah that if it is overturned, that we would make abortion illegal in the state of Utah, except in cases of incest, rape, and the life and health of the mother. And then, as you know, Roe versus Wade was overturned. It didn't make abortions illegal, although in my opinion, they already are unconstitutional, because the Constitution is there to protect the life and the liberty of every individual, including those they're alive. They're just not yet outside of the womb. So that then, of course, as soon as it was overturned, there were lawsuits, and then the courts were held up, and we are still killing babies every day in the state of Utah. Over 3,000 last year.
Wow.
And already almost close, very up there, close to 2,000 already this year.
Wow.
Okay, so then the state of Utah, the legislature kind of repealed that because they're saying that's what was holding it up in court. So I would like to hear from you, as if you're the AG, where do you stand on that? What do you think we should do? What should we do on protecting the unborn?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's always important to know that I'm not the legislature. I can't make up laws,
Right.
And things like that. And so I'm kind of get what I'm handed in terms of that regard. But yes, I have a passion to protect life. So this would be a priority to me to try to move this along, try to get a decision. Sometimes there are ways to get judges to move on things. And sometimes there are not. I literally waited for a decision that just came out on March 27th. And I think it was at least 3 years, maybe 4 years.
Wow.
So that is not the first time. I actually had an anti-pornography case that took 4 years for a decision.
Really?
Yes, years ago in the 90s. And so I can't imagine that the Utah Supreme Court would take that long. I had a very important parental rights decision in 2007, and it did take a couple of years, but it should not take that long for this. But it's winding up into that, isn't it? I mean, it's, we're at least a year into this.
Well, it's almost 2 years now.
Yeah. And so it's, sometimes there's some tricks you can do. Sometimes there's even some changes I can make, from the legislature, to tell, hey, legislator, let's tinker with this law and make the suit moot and make them have to file another one, on this issue. So that's also a possibility. But just to be honest with you, when it's in the court's hands, there's not a lot otherwise you can do. Very
good point. And I do say, a lot of legislators, they want to do the right thing, and they want to bring this, but they also want to be respectful with our state dollars, and don't want to just pass a law just to go into court and spend a ton of money. So having your support and your advice to them and mentoring so that they can frame a bill in a way that you can win it if it gets sued, that is very helpful.
Yeah, and actually, to tell you the truth, Dalane, I've already done that in the past.
Yes.
Several years ago, some of the legislatures, some of the conservative ones came to me and said, Frank, we want to strengthen our pro-life laws. And I think one of them was the ultrasound requirement. I think there were some other medical things that we did, maybe informed consent, some things like that. And I have handled pro-life issues, but I'm not going to just rely on myself because I don't do this day in and day out. So who did I get? I got Steve Aiden, one of the top attorneys. He's affiliated with Alliance Defending Freedom, of course. He was back in DC. He flew out on his dime and helped. We worked with the legislature to craft laws, and those before Roe versus Wade was overturned still withstood judicial scrutiny. And so that, that's what I'm going to do. Idaho did that a couple of weeks ago. They had the Alliance Defending Freedom handle their pro-life laws in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And that's what I bring to the table that my competitors just don't. They're not plugged into these groups. I've also worked with American Center for Law and Justice in defending 10 Commandments and things like this. And so they're also a wonderful organization that is kind of part of the alliance from Alliance Defending Freedom, but they're a separate organization. And, the Attorney General should be relying on free legal help, especially when it's the best you can get. And that's what we're really talking with these organizations, is really getting the best legal representation and not having to pay for it. So what I would do, though, as the Attorney General, I would make sure an assistant AG is on that case so that they can get up to speed. They can learn. They can learn from the best attorneys in the country on it. I will not allow an attorney like that to just fight on their own. That's foolishness, honestly. And we don't get a second crack at it. You got to do it right the first time. And that, like I said, that's something that I will bring to the table, and that I'm already working with these groups, and they will be part of helping us in Utah fight to win, whether it be Title IX, whether it be fighting the feds, whether it's immigration. I will bring in some of the best national attorneys to help us fight these causes.
Okay, so speaking of immigration, that was actually my next question.
Okay.
How do you feel about illegal immigration? And what do you feel that you could, as AG, do about it?
All right. Let me just say one thing just before I do this. I am actually going to have to sign on to a link because I was initially slated to do this at noon, and I actually have to be downtown.
Okay.
So I'm signing on to my phone right now, and I just want to make sure I'm on, and then I can. Then I will actually head out.
Okay.
So you can tell me, and then it sounds like I'm on here. I'm going to turn off right here.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us, Frank. We really appreciate it.
So I can continue now, but I'm just going to be moving, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's just perfectly fine as long as we can hear you. That works great.
Great. Excellent. Okay. Can you hear me fine?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. So tell us about what your stand is on illegal immigration.
Absolutely. One of the first things I'm going to do, and nobody has mentioned this, governors, senators, legislators, not the other AG, of us being a
Dang it.
Dump people here.
Okay, Frank, you're going to need to repeat that because we lost you. Now we really lost him. We'll see if we can get him back in. Okay.
I'm going to turn off my
technology. It really is awesome. I really love technology. But here it is. Here's the rub. It doesn't work all the time. It works sometimes, a lot of times. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Is it working now? Can you hear me?
Now it's working. Yes.
I turned off my Wi-Fi, so it won't be trying to connect to some Wi-Fi that's not very good.
Okay.
So I'm going to close that faucet by making sure that I'll have to do this with the legislature, and I will make sure that they pass a law that makes it a felony to pay for, to help anyone get in to the state of Utah that's an illegal alien. And you can bet that no pilot is going to risk losing their by taking an air flight to Utah in the middle of the night. It's just not going to happen. And also even bus drivers, they don't want a felony, especially when you can extradite them when it's a felony. And so this is very important. And part of this is I know these issues because I've dealt with them. I've dealt with issues regarding.
Okay, hopefully we'll get Frank back. I just want to clarify something with him. I believe that we would need the legislature to pass a law that way in order to hold them accountable in that way. I believe that. That's what I want to ask, be absolutely sure. So as I was saying, technology is really great.
What I can really do is to
Frank, we need you to back up just a
back to the
titch.
sanctuary state of New York.
Okay, say
but
that.
There shouldn't be in
Frank,
Utah, at least.
Frank, can you say that again? We lost you for a few minutes there.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. So just repeat the last thing you said.
Hello?
Hi. Can you hear me? We can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Dalane?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you. Okay. We can. Frank,
Okay,
can you hear me
now?
Yes, I hear you. Go.
Hello,
Go.
Dalane?
Yes, I can hear you.
Dalane, can you hear me?
If anybody would like to, yes, if anybody would like to call in, our number is 385-899.
We can hear Frank, but he can't hear us.
Right. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think. If anybody would like to call in, our number is 385-899-2134.
So I think was that Dwayne? I don't know who it was.
Yes. Can you hear me,
Just
Frank?
hear somebody.
Can you hear us, Frank? Old phones.
So Frank, we'd need you to repeat what your resolution would be with the people that come here illegally.
Now you're cutting out.
There's a little bit of a lag. Can you hear us now, Frank?
I can hear that. Yes.
No. There's just a little bit of a lag because of the phone, but I'll let you continue, Dalane. Go ahead and restate what you said about the legislature and keeping the illegal aliens out.
Okay, Frank, I believe what your resolution would be to make it.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you were saying that
the legislature and make sure they make it a felony to help or assist or aid or abet anyone that's illegal coming into the state of Utah. That will close the faucet because pilots will not risk losing their license by flying into Utah. And bus drivers won't want to do it either because if it's a felony, they can be extradited and prosecuted in Utah. We don't care what the federal government says. It's because at this point it would be a Utah law. So that's closing the faucet. The second thing to do is round up all the people that New York has dumped here and send them back to New York.
Okay. Thank you very much. So
and I cannot hear anything right now.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted
to. Why
to.
this isn't streaming better? Looks like I've got 5 bars now.
Yeah, like I was saying about technology. Oh man, it's a double-edged sword. It's great and horrible all at the same time. And this is the reason why we want to be really careful about how and where we use technology. Because
Frank, we can hear you, but I don't think you can hear us. Can you hear us?
I can hear that. Yeah, I hear you
good.
Right now.
Okay.
Do you want to ask me a question?
Okay.
Go ahead, Dalane.
Go ahead
See
and
if he
ask
can
me.
hear you.
Frank, while we have you, what do you think?
Dalane.
Okay, that's so interesting.
I cannot hear Dalane at all.
Okay.
Not sure why.
Yeah, that's.
Dalane, I can hear you. Why don't you log out and log back in? Just quickly go out and go back in. No, you're fine, Frank.
Do that or Dalane? Okay.
You can hear me. I can hear you. You can't hear Dalane.
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead, Dalane. Check back in. Well, Frank, you and I could carry on a conversation.
Absolutely. Do you want to ask me a question or do you want me to make some comments on something?
Well, I just want to know
anyway,
where people can. I just want to know where people can get in touch with you and how they can support you, and
Yes.
what we can do to get them on your team.
Thank you so much. Yes, I need everyone to go to Mylar for the number 4 ag.com. You can also go to frankmylar.com. Either way, it will work. And you can also donate patients. That's really, really helpful, because I really have an aggressive campaign to get the word out. We found out in the state convention that when I got the word out, that it turned people's minds. They changed their mind from one of the other 3 candidates. Go to mylar4ag.com. It's pictured right there. You can donate.
Yep, I've got
also
you.
hit the volunteer button. Yeah, and so you can also go to volunteer. You can give us the information. We watch that every day. If you want a sign, we will get you signs. We've been giving away hundreds of signs at every event recently, and that's fantastic. So in fact, we almost completely ran out this week from last Saturday. But we have a couple signs left, and we're getting more tomorrow. We're getting another 500 tomorrow.
I got the last of your signs for I got the last of your signs for Wasatch up here in Wasatch and Summit.
Awesome. I'm so glad because we're getting them up. That's the exciting thing, is people are telling me that is free advertising. So please do that. The other thing is word of mouth. I have flyers. I have Mitch Vilos's gun rights flyer. I have Mike Ferris's endorsement letter of me, but I also have campaign flyers and door hangers. Those door hangers are to be given only to registered Republicans or anyone else that's interested in supporting the race. So either one would be fine. They might not be registered, but they want to support my campaign. That's fine. If they're not registered, they can actually still get registered. And you need to register as a Republican in order to vote for me.
There's time left. There's time left to register. Get out there and vote. I think Dalane is back. Let's see. Dalane,
okay,
can you?
I'm here.
Frank, can you hear?
Oh, I can hear you now. Great.
Okay,
yes,
great.
I can.
Okay, so one of the questions I wanted to ask is, one of the parts of being the Attorney General is that you're not in every single case, but you're also, we have 600 employees in the state of Utah, I believe 300
Correct.
attorneys. So tell us what experience you have in overseeing other attorneys, because that is a big part of the job.
Yes, and I am the only candidate that's actually both supervised attorneys in the AG's office and outside of the AG's office. I've also managed, I also have an MBA, Master's in Business Administration, so I've learned a thing or two from that. And I apply that to my law practice, my own private law practice, where I do supervise attorneys and paralegals and secretaries, and been doing that for 24 years. I also was the director of legal affairs for the Department of Corrections, and I was over investigators. I was over several attorneys, hearing officers, administrative law judge, legislative affairs, and records, and even prisoner grievances and employee grievances. And so I have that experience already, and none of my competitors actually have ever done that. But again, it's like they have, but that's simply, I'm talking about actually managing attorneys that are under you in an employment fashion. Not that you're managing claims for the state of Utah, not that you're in sitting in, different senators' offices dealing with, employee issues. That's not the same. That's not the same at all. And I'm going to tell you that attorneys, especially number of attorneys that are experienced attorneys and paralegals and investigators, are not going to take kindly to being told what to do by someone that's never done it before. I've had numerous jury trials. I've had numerous Supreme Court arguments, numerous 10th Circuit Court of Appeals arguments, and my competitors have zero. No jury trials, no Supreme Court arguments, no 10th Circuit arguments. And that is not going to go over well. I'm sorry. They're not going to be able to lead.
and they're going to be at a huge disadvantage because they've never really played the game, so to speak. It's like being in charge of coaching a baseball team, but you've never played the game. You know about the game. You've been, you understand certain parts of it, but you never actually played a real game of baseball. That is, you wouldn't want an audit. You wouldn't want who's never made an arrest. These things are kind of perfunctory things that are very, very important, though, that you have that kind of management experience so you can lead out and they will respect and follow that leadership.
Now, you make some really good analogies, Frank. Those are excellent, because you would never hire an umpire who's never played the game of whatever, any kind of game. I'm not usually baseball for an umpire, but it doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't hire somebody to coach a team who's never played the game or doesn't, has never been in the arena. And this is, in my opinion, the Attorney General is one of the very most important positions that we have in our state, because it really does impact and affect our personal daily lives for every person, our regular lives, because the issues that we've been talking about are decided. So much of that is decided. So much is impacted by what happens in the Attorney General's office. So it is a really important position. And did you have any other specific issues that you would like to talk about? We have just a few minutes left.
Sure. I think, again, fighting the feds, this is something that I've done before, again, and it's not theoretical. Almost every issue that you want to do as Attorney General, that's important as Attorney General, my competitors say, oh, I'm going to do this. But my point again is, well, why haven't they actually filed a lawsuit to fight the feds in the past, if that was so important to them? And I filed the numerous amicus briefs in so many different cases that none of this is theoretical. All of it is something I've already been doing. And so, one of my competitors says that she's ready to hit the ground running. Well, that's great, but she's never done it before. How in the world is she ready to hit the ground running when she only worked in the education of the AG's office? And she's not practicing law now, or even practicing law right now. They're not in an attorney position at all. One was a lobbyist, and one's working for Governor Cox as a,
Yeah, I just want you to think about having a lobbyist who's got these deals, who's working for, is being paid by these big, high-powered organizations that the AG may very well have to sue or defend our state against, and what a conflict of interest that would be. That would just be very difficult. Would the AG, as a lobbyist, be able to do that? That would be Derek Brown, who he is currently right now a lobbyist. I see him up on the Hill all the time. Lovely person, just a very nice person, really, really engaging, very he's very articulate, very talented, amazing pianist, but he's never actually practiced law. He represents, he's a lobbyist. He doesn't really use his law degree in court. He's never been in court. So I just think this is way too big of a position to turn over to someone who hasn't ever been in court before. And I do think I'm very concerned and very conflicted by the fact that the person who is our lieutenant governor, whose only responsibility as lieutenant governor is to oversee our elections. And I do think it's much more than a conflict of interest to have the person over elections, Deidre Henderson, the lieutenant governor, to be on a specific person's campaign finance team. So as AG, you want to do everything above board. You want everything to be clean. You don't ever want anyone to question your integrity or that you won. So I think it's not wisdom. There's a very, very huge lack of judgment there. Just a huge lack of judgment. You wouldn't want everyone, if Derek Brown wins, there'll be a lot of people who will not trust that he won. They will think that Deidre Henderson, as our lieutenant governor, may have done something. No accusations, just there will be that cloud of question, that cloud of doubt that will hang over him. And what we need now is an AG where there is no drama, no trauma, where someone we can trust that's going to be aligned with our values in the state of Utah and do that job. Welcome back, Frank. Glad to have you back. Can you hear me? Oh my goodness. I don't think Frank can hear me now. Frank, can you hear me? Okay. So, and I know Frank has this other meeting. He looks more like he's flying in a plane than in a car. That's just me. So the other person who's running for Attorney General is Rachel Terry. Again, very lovely person, just very lovely, very nice person. I really like Rachel a lot, but again, I served on the State Central Committee. She has been an attorney. She does have some experience, very limited, but she does have some experience. And so she is more prepared, but I feel like I would like to share with you the fact
I can't hear you at all.
Frank, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. What
Well,
would you like me to answer?
These phones are driving me nuts. What was your question, Dalane?
I was not going to ask a question since Frank can't hear me.
If you could tell me what it is, that would be great.
I'm just going to state the fact that I served on the State Central Committee for numerous years, several years, with Rachel Terry. And I found, I voted according to the Republican platform and always according to the Constitution. But on the State Central Committee, what we do is we are the governing board of the party. And so our decisions, we vote to govern and run the party. And I always voted in alignment with our platform of our party. And I will say that you can get the voting record of Rachel Terry, and you will be able to document and see that her voting record was not aligned with the platform or an alignment with the majority of people on the State Central Committee that are more conservative. She voted more progressively and on a more liberal bent. So again, that is not my personal opinion, which it could be, but that is actually, you can look at her voting record and look and see that she's not aligned in the same way. So
let's see if Frank can hear you. Frank, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes,
okay,
I can.
Cool.
And people that know about the other candidates, it's important for them to take and own that. I don't know these things. I wasn't on the State Central Committee during these times. I wasn't, around when, the other candidate was over the state party, when he was in the legislature. But you guys know those things. That's helpful for you to bring them to light, so people can know that there's another side of the story that they're from.
Well, and I think, everybody, that's what's so great about a republic. Everyone has their freedom to have their own views and their opinions. And on the State Central Committee, you get to vote how you want to vote. You do get to. Otherwise, what's the point of voting if everybody just votes the same? But I do think it's important when someone has a history and a voting record, it's important to do your due diligence and look and see what is that history. Well, we know someone's ideology and their mentality based on how they have acted. And the votes do give you a clear picture of those actions. And so, and I do think that it paints a very clear picture of ideology. And I would just invite, as a citizen, as someone who loves Utah and thinks that we are very blessed to live in this state and that we are a God-fearing and a God-loving people. And we understand that we will only have freedom if we have a moral basis. We have to have a moral foundation to be free. Once we separate ourselves from a moral foundation, we can't be free. And so that is a really important consideration when you ask, when you go to vote, when you go to cast your vote. And I'm certainly not accusing anyone in the race of being immoral, but I do think the actions, their fruits, do show their ideology, which is really important. Frank, I can see you. Can I hear you? That is the question. Can you hear me? Okay, so, yep, we're still having problems with our technology. So I just want to invite everyone to go to, we had his website up a few minutes ago. It is Frank for, I think it's Mylar. Sorry.
Can you hear
We'll
me?
pull that up. I can hear you fine, Frank. I don't think you can hear me. So you can always go
Can
to
you hear me,
Frank
Dalane?
Mylar. Yes, I can. You can go to Frank Mylar for Attorney General, and it will pull up his website. He has been endorsed by Moms for America Action, and they have endorsed him because they have vetted and they have checked to see his record and see what he's about. It's Frank Mylar, number 4, AG.com. Frank Mylar, Mylar, number 4, AG.com. And you can go there. I would encourage you, as we are getting your ballot soon and as you're considering who to vote for, please get educated, please get engaged, please help these candidates. Frank Mylar won overwhelmingly again in convention. He did very, very well. And with 4 people in the race, he was by far the top candidate, over 46%, I believe, between all 4. And so, but to run an election, to run a campaign, it costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of manpower. Putting up some signs is hugely helpful, very helpful. Going out and delivering door knockers to your neighbors, talking to your neighbors, calling them up, sending them information, sending them an email, sending them this video. There are so many things you can do to help and make a difference. And if everybody will just understand, if they will just do something, if you will contact 10 people and ask those 10 people if they will please contact 5 people, you will make a difference. It will spread, because Frank has been very busy as an attorney, standing up for freedom, standing up for our liberties in the trenches, working on these very issues. He has fought in court on the issues that are important to Utah. No other candidate has fought in court for these issues. They have, Rachel Terry has been to court, but she has never fought for these issues, not these issues that are Utah, that the things we're talking about, the girls' sports, the pornography, getting it out of our schools, pro-life issues, the illegal immigration issues, our lands issues. That is the one place Rachel Terry, she has fought on the lands issue. Frank has fought on the lands issue. It's a big issue. It's an important issue. But all these other issues are also vitally important to our well-being and to our happiness and our security and sovereignty as a state. And so please get in touch with our candidates. Please contact them. Please see what you can do to help them. Frank Mylar, number 4, AG.com.
I think Frank's got another
Thanks so
meeting
much.
to get to.
Okay,
And,
Frank, can you hear us?
Yes, I can now. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Frank, we're almost out of time. Do you have any parting thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I do. I really think that it's so vital that people know that there is a good, strong conservative in this race. If all the conservatives will get together, contact others, I will win, because this is a 3-way race. And I believe I just need 40% to win. This is really, really doable, but it's not going to happen unless listeners take it upon themselves to say, let's get the word out. Let's make a difference in Utah in the Attorney General's office. Please go to my campaign website. Like I said, please donate. Please volunteer. Please take signs. We're at events. We're going to be at a lot of events, and we need to get those signs up all in solid locations. Thanks so much. I appreciate you having me here, Dalane.
Thank you so much, Frank. Enjoy your meeting. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being with us. We very much appreciate you running. It is very exciting to have a year where we have so many excellent candidates that did very well in convention. And the reason that they did well is because the delegates were able to meet face to face, to talk to everyone that's running. And they chose Frank Mylar overwhelmingly, saying, this is the man we want to go and represent us and to be our Attorney General in the state of Utah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We just want to remind everyone to get engaged, get educated, do something, do your part. You can make a difference. You are the guardian of your liberty. Because you are the guardian of your liberty, you cannot expect anyone else to do this for you. Each one of us needs to get engaged and do something. So I ask you, I plead with you to spend 5 minutes every day just contacting a few people, letting them know, get some signs up in your yard, then go to your neighbors. The science shows that if you've got 3 to 4 signs in a neighborhood, where the neighborhood sees 3 or 4 signs in that neighborhood, it will impact the neighborhood. Almost everyone else, people are followers. They'll say, oh, everyone in our neighborhood is voting for Frank Mylar. Everyone in our neighborhood is voting for Phil Lyman. Everyone in our neighborhood is voting for Kobe Jenkins. And so then you will have so much power to affect so much change and get other people to get on board. So I just implore everyone to please, make that little bit of effort, 5 minutes a day, to get engaged and let your neighbors and friends and other people in the state of Utah know. So thank you. I hope you have a beautiful day.
In spite of our technical difficulties with Frank and his phone, I think this was well done. Thank you, Dalane.
Thank you. Thank you. And remember that you are the guardian of your liberty. Have a beautiful day. Thanks. Thank you, Dwayne.